Welcome to Protea Conversations, the podcast where leadership in business and accounting isn't just discussed, it's explored. I'm your host, Zane Stevens, and thank you for joining me as we delve into the minds of some of the most influential leaders in the industry. Our journey is one of discovery, from unraveling the unique stories that shaped our guest careers to invaluable advice that fueled their success. We're here to provide you with simple, actionable advice to accelerate your career and personal growth. Whether you're a budding professional or a seasoned executive, these conversations are designed to offer insight and perspectives that resonate with everyone. So tune in, engage, and be inspired as we build better leaders together. Welcome to Protea Conversations.
Today I'm joined by Justin Stevens, EA, second-generation owner of Stevens Tax Services in Santa Rosa, California. Stevens Tax Services is a family business started by his father, Lee, back in 1983, and today Justin leads the firm helping individuals and businesses around the country with friendly, reliable tax preparation and planning. Justin, welcome to Protea Conversations.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, it's been interesting and fun to get to know you over the last few months, and I had the opportunity for you to share a little bit of your story with our team, which prompted me to rush out and get you invited on the show. And then
Sure.
You and I have had some opportunities to talk about some stuff outside of the accounting world as well, share that with our Provisor group. So I'm excited for this. I think your story is amazing. So maybe we just start there and go, Justin, how did you get into this world of tax? Like, how did it happen?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a great question. I do have sort of an unusual way that I got into taxes because I didn't want anything to do with it at first. As you said, I'm second generation. My dad owned the business, started it when I was 2 years old. And so I grew up in a tax office, spent my Saturdays during tax season, playing with He-Man action figures in the back room. We'd even get friends over and stuff with sometimes, which was nice. But yeah, he and my mom ran the business, so that's what it was, and I didn't want anything to do with it. So I went into sales and sales management, just kind of found my way into that, and I was pretty good at it. By 23, I was running a $6 million retail store, and it was a very rewarding experience. But sales, you're working all weekends and all of that stuff. Black Friday was always it was like tax season a little bit, but a little less crunch timey, just very busy. And then I kind of, I got tired of that whole thing after many, many years of doing that, and ran a couple of stores. Of course, the big, housing market crisis back in 2007, 8, and that, led to some of those stores closing and things like that. So I had to figure out something else to do, and I went and sold cars for a while at Mercedes. So I was just trying to sell and figure out a job. And my dad had he was 49 years old when he was diagnosed with cancer for the first time. And he, battled it off and on during that time for 7 years. And I was working for a copier company doing outside sales. I just got the job 2 weeks prior, and he went into the hospital. And I went and I tried. This was by the way, on April 8th, I think it was. It was April 7th or 8th. It was like a week before the tax deadline. And so it was a little nuts. I was helping my stepmom try to get all the extension clients called, say, hey, here's what's happening with him. We can't get it done. And anyways, I was standing in the office with my wife, who was my fiance at the time, I think. Oh no, she was my wife at that time. Yes. I was standing there with my wife and my stepmom, and they were like, why don't you do this and take over the business? Because it was pretty apparent that after my dad went to the hospital, he was probably not going to make it. I was like, I can't do taxes. I can't do this. And so I was like, no. And then I really started to think about it, and I decided to give it a go and take it over with no real experience, working with him a little bit, several years past. But anyways, so yeah, that's kind of where it took off. He was an enrolled agent as well. And so I decided to start self-studying for my EA. He would only make it about a month from that time. So he died May 6th of 2015. And I got some opportunity to, while he was in the hospital, talk to him and go over the business and all of that. And one of the most impactful moments of my life really was I had this question about, what was something to do with the business. I was like, the operations and all of that. And I walk in, and I remember in the hospital, he's laying there, and I was like, okay, what, asked him some question. Don't even remember what that was. And he was like, well, Justin, look, just stop. I'm going to stop you there. Look, I'm giving you the football. You take it, you run with it. and take it from here, kind of just handing me over everything, giving me the keys to the building and giving me really a lot of confidence to be able to take it over. And so I did. And that's kind of where it went. And as I said, a few days after that, he was gone. And I was working with my mom in the business, who was a tax preparer as well, to help get some of these last minute returns done while getting my EA. And I got my EA. I started studying in late April, and I got it by December. So I passed all 3 parts of the special enrollment exam and studied for everything. And people were like, "Oh, why don't you just become a tax preparer?" Because you can, in California, you can register as a tax preparer and you can still do taxes that way. But I was like, no, my dad was an EA. This is what I want to do. It was very important to me to maintain that. And so I did. So yeah, that was a lot. And at his funeral, a few days after he had passed, of course, I closed the eulogy by telling that story about the football, and just telling him that I'm going to take the football and run like hell to make him proud, and that's been my whole driving force through all of the challenges and the things. And so when I took over the company, we had about 1,100 clients. He had a very, very healthy practice. It was just him as a tax preparer. And so during that tax season, I did 700-800 returns on my own, having really not done a tax season before ever, except to work in his office. My mom, again, came in and helped me, which was a lifesaver as well. And anyway, now fast forward to 10 years later, we've got close to 2,500 clients. I employ 3 different tax preparers, a full-time during tax time, and 2 others that are here in the office in the off season that help me out. But otherwise, yeah, before tax season was up this last tax year, I did about 1,000 tax returns myself. And then I had another enrolled agent that's no longer with us now, but he left this year, but he was doing the others. We're growing and there's lots of business to be had. And yeah, I've been running since 2015 and don't plan on stopping.
Yeah, just an incredible story. And you clearly took the ball and ran with it. And, everything I know about you and heard from other people, I know your dad would be really, really proud of you. And I think you're
Thank
doing
you
an
for
amazing
saying that. I
job.
appreciate that.
Every person I meet they're like, Justin Stevens, he's incredible. He does a great job. And
That's great.
And if random people are telling you that on the street, I'm going to take it as true. So,
that's great to hear. That warms my heart.
Fantastic. But talk to me about you're running with the ball now, but you were running away from the ball for a long time.
Yeah.
What was the motivation to stay away from the taxes to start with?
That is an excellent question. I saw my dad and, I'd always respected my dad and everything, but he was a super quiet guy. Your stereotypical accountant, if you will, like where he just doesn't talk a lot. He was famous for kind of his bobblehead, like, just kind of nodding along. And as people are talking and he was a man of few words, and I was different, and I felt I was different. I was like, I'm not going to be that stuffy accountant like everybody, you have in your mind. Since I've learned that doesn't describe every accountant there is for sure, but that's the stereotype, right? So in any case, I just really never thought that it was something that I would enjoy. And even when he was, on his deathbed, he asked, "Are you going to enjoy this?" Like he was really concerned about that. At that time, kind of, to be perfectly honest with you, I was kind of just seeing the money. I knew that he had made pretty good money, and I was like, this could be a great career for me. And he told me, like, he's kept it small and I could make it as large as I wanted it to be. He saw the potential in the business and he didn't really want to take it there, but he knew with my sales and like how much of a people person I try to be that I could do more. And so I think all of those things kind of led me back to it, but that was why. Funny enough too, I didn't even mention this in the story, but I have a degree in English literature. So
wow.
I had got my degree in English while I was in that sales world after they closed my stores and things like that I was talking about. I wanted to be an English teacher. I love words, and I've always done really well at math and numbers too. But yeah, English was definitely my thing. So it was just that culmination of everything that I wanted to avoid, but now finding into it, I can't imagine doing anything else. I'm so happy with not only where the business is, but just in my job. I love doing taxes, which is funny to say. So, yeah.
No, it's incredible. And you know what, like it strikes me more, the story is amazing. I've never been in that world, so I can't comprehend, but it is clearly, being able to take over the family business in a time of need and the way you just jumped in and helped solve the problem, which I think is, the part that I don't want anybody to overlook. Like you had a week and you guys jumped in and
Yeah.
you solved the issues.
Yeah.
And then you still got it all done by the, the real deadline, right?
Yes. Yeah.
4:15, who cares about that? It's
Yeah,
not a real deadline.
exactly. 10:15 is the real one. Yeah.
Exactly. You got it all done. And then you really put in the hard work to make sure that you were ready to take on the next cycle and have
Yes.
that same qualification, be able to do it. Where did that motivation come from? That takes a lot at that point in time. You're in a moment of grief. Clearly
Yeah.
had a good relationship with your father. I'm
Yeah.
sure it was hard losing him at that time, but instead of disappearing into a hole, which you could have done, you took on this super proactive role that made a difference to all of his clients and secured his legacy forever.
Yeah, it makes me emotional just hearing you say that. I didn't think about it at the time. You're kind of placed into this situation, and this is how my dad was too. And then so I know I get it from him. When he had cancer, it was always, like I said, it was 7 years. It was always, what am I going to do for next tax season? Okay, we have to do this. I'm going to have surgery, then chemo, then I'll be ready to roll for next tax season. He had his arm amputated the last year of his life because the cancer kept coming back there. He did 1,000 tax returns with one arm. And he had literally, and he had all these little tools and things to help him out. But he was just like, oh, okay, well, this is a problem. We're just going to do it. We're just going to move on from it. In the middle of that too, he had his heart valve replaced at 1 year. And I can remember talking to him about it. He was like, okay, we just got to fix the heart, then we can do the chemo, then we can move into tax time, like be ready to go for when that is. And I just kind of took the same approach. It wasn't a matter of, it was out of necessity. If I wanted to keep it going and I saw the benefit of it and it was there in front of me, and yes, it was to keep his legacy, but it was also to build a life for me and my family that I could be proud of. And that was that. So there was no other option. And I think that is the most important thing to learn from, that I've always taken from it, is just that there is no other option. You just keep going, you keep running. And that's essentially what I was doing. And it didn't seem like a big thing to me at the time. It seemed like, you just got to check this off and get it done. I saw the path ahead of me and I just kept going. And then looking back, I'm like, how did I do that? I can't even imagine that first tax season. I don't remember what my state of mind was in that first tax season, because you're dealing with the long hours, and anybody in the accounting world knows how difficult it is to get through tax season alone. And then learning a brand new thing, there must have been variety of mistakes and this and that and all of these things all together, and managing that kind of client load. I look back at it and go, I don't know how I did it. It was incredible that I could have managed to do that. But at the time I was just like, it's just what needs to be done. There's no other option.
No, it's just incredible. And just to think about 7 months from nothing to passing the EA exam,
Right. Yeah.
it feels like almost impossible.
Yeah.
It's not like this is an easy exam. EAs really get, they get knocked about. Like you got to know your stuff to get it, right? Because it's the other qualification, and people want to make sure that you really do know your thing before they give you those credentials. And I mean, I'm just trying to think of the commitment and time and perseverance that you had to have in those 7 months to just get it done. How did you schedule your life around it? I mean, you're also learning on the job. You're dealing with everything that you have to deal with when somebody passes. You're having to now take over this business. I'm sure there was tons of client community. 1,100 tax returns. There's a lot of personalities that you had to reach out to at the same time. There's a ton going on. How did you find the time for it? How did you manage your day? How did you prioritize to make sure that you could get this done?
Well, the number one thing was focusing on my EA and getting that. And I did a self-study course through a company called Gleim. I've always been a pretty good test taker, which is great. That was really helpful. But to your point, the EA exam is a 3-part exam. It's individual, then business, then ethics. All three they're 3 hours a piece, or something like 3 to 4 hours a piece. And the vast majority of people, I forget the statistic, but I think it's in the 70s or so, don't pass it their first time around. I know somebody who's been a bookkeeper for a long time and, went to pass the exam and had difficulty passing several times, but then eventually pass. So it isn't easy for sure. May have made it sound easy, but it's not. You're licensed by the IRS or credentialed by the IRS. So the IRS isn't just going to sign it off if it was a simple thing. They want people to know their stuff. But it was going through that self-study program, basically spending the nights and weekends and whatever time. I can remember being on the beach with my wife. We went out to one of the beaches, and we were sitting there, and we're just sitting there enjoying, and she's reading and I'm reading my, self-study book, the Gleim book. It's just, we wherever I could fit it in, you just fit it in. But yeah, I think the first exam was in July. And so it was like July and then October, then December, I believe is how it's spaced out. But so yeah, you just cram as much as possible in there. And then, as I said, the on the job training, my mom being a tax preparer came in, she was signing her name on the returns because I couldn't sign the return. So all the stuff that had to get finished up, she would help me prepare. But I was doing the returns. I was like, I insist on doing it myself, and then she could check it over, and that was invaluable too. Just to I learn, and I think a lot of people learn best by just doing it, especially when it's taxes. There's too much to you can't learn it all from a book. You can learn law, and you can learn, and I think my English degree helped with that too, learning how to read and make sense of everything. But unless you're actually doing it, you're not going to be able to prepare that many tax returns without that experience.
Yeah, experience is key. And if you had to reflect on that first sort of 9 months, I want to jump into your first, real tax season, but
Yeah, sure.
that experience of that first 9 months, and what lesson is it in there for sort of younger people that are just entering the accounting space right now? Because we constantly hear people are just like looking for the next jump, looking for the next jump, looking for the next jump. And it feels like there's some learning from what you've done where it's like, hard work, put your head down, just get it done. There's some advice in there. What would you say to young accountants coming into the accounting space that are, so worried about the future? Like what can they learn from you about right now and just sort of, I guess, buckling
Yeah.
down?
Well, there's a great quote by a comedian named Jimmy Carr. I don't know if you're familiar, but he's an English comedian. I love the guy. And I was just, on the internet or something, and he drops these little bits of wisdom every now and then. And he says, "The life you want is on the other side of the work you're avoiding." And I just really took that to heart. And I thought, okay, that is really what it's about, because, I was kind of going through all this, my life, just kind of in these sales jobs, and I was decent at it. I was good at it. They promoted me, like I said, when I was 23, really young, and was able to kind of make my world in there, but I didn't really work for it. There wasn't anything that I did to work for in those except just work. And then on the job training and all of that. And if I would have stuck with that, I don't think that my life would be the same as it is now. I wouldn't be able to commit the time to my kids and all of that. And I guess what I'm saying, and the reason I framed it in that quote to answer your question is it is about the work. It's about seeing that it's not shying away from it. It's leaning into it. We've had discussions about our health journeys as well. And it's, a very similar thing there. I've recently lost close to 70 pounds over the past year and a half, and been really working on that side of myself. And I always thought, okay, what's the easiest way to get there from point A to point B? What is the easiest way? And when it comes to health, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of these, things that you can take and these days and all of that. We discussed that a little bit as well. But the easy answer, it's work, and you cannot be afraid of the work. There's no shortcuts. And when I stop looking for shortcuts for things is when my life gets better. Same thing with relationships, same thing with anything else. That's kind of what I feel like has always been the thing that gets me to the place where I want to go. And I'm not a big goal setter guy, which is funny. I have goals, I have general goals, but I'm not one of those. Like, I have a good friend who's a huge goal setter. Everything is laid out, and he strives to attain those. I don't go like, okay, I need to get to here in order to get here. I think about those things, but it's not my big thing. My big thing is, I don't like the way this is. I want to get it better somehow. So how do I get it better? So it's similar, and the answer is always work for it and figure out what type of work you need to do to get there. And that was the same was true there. And like I said, it wasn't a matter of if, it was when. It wasn't a matter of, there was just no other option. I just had to do the work. And being put in that position, I didn't choose to do the work. I had to, and I had to in a short period of time. That's actually easier in some respects than making the decision to say, I'm going to do the work, because then you've made that decision. So yeah, I think that's the biggest lesson. It's just, all right, well, I don't like how this is. It's time to figure out how to do the work.
Yeah. Sometimes I like to think about it. Like, if you want to get somewhere, you probably need the experience to make you sort of appreciate it.
Yes.
And the only way to get that experience is to put in the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes, like, I was talking to one of my friends just this morning. We used to run a lot together back in South Africa, and we're planning a race together. And like, the only way to get to that race is to put in the big miles. Like I can't get to the race unless I run,
Yeah.
until that
Yeah.
race. Like I was
Right.
going to show up on the day and he's going to run away from me, and the whole goal of running together is just going to be gone. There's no shortcuts to get there. There's nothing else I can do. I just have to get on, like put on my shoes, go for a run. And, I did. I went out for a run this morning. It was 39 degrees when I went running. It
Yeah.
was terrible.
Yeah.
But it's just what you have to do. Like that's the way you get there. And, don't give up on the journey, because part of the fun sometimes is the journey. Like the
Yeah.
goal looks great and there's a lot that comes with it and you can appreciate it, but like you got to enjoy life, enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, learn the lessons along the way, and it'll make it so much worthwhile when you get there. And total sidetrack from what you were saying, but you put in the hard work, it paid off, you got your qualification, and then you had your first real tax season. And
Then
I'm
the
not going to
work
count
began.
the first one. The work began, right? So now you think you know what you're doing because you just passed an exam and you think you're the smartest person in the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And possibly you are because you got through it so easily, but you did. You hit this first period, which I, sort of solo for a lack of a word. You didn't have the full motivation of your dad passing right there to push you through either. How was that next one? Like, how did that first, real tax season go?
Yeah, that was tough, and it was tough. I'll be honest. I mean, it was tough on my relationship with my wife and my relationship with other friends and things like that. Like, and anybody who again is in the accounting community and or does just taxes or whatever it is knows tax season. It's a weird business, right? It's like we only have 2 months to get stuff done. We can't stretch that. Yeah, we can do extensions, but 90% of the people, at least from my experience, aren't going to do the extensions, not in the space that I'm working in, which is your average kind of, person that's not running giant businesses and doesn't do all sorts of planning and all of that sort of a thing. So it was very difficult. It was a lot of long hours, and I was working till 10 o'clock at night, like trying to figure out this. And that's, like I said, what put the strain on our relationship. And we were navigating us. Actually, we were married in 2014. So it was like a year and a half, And also, my wife started a new business. Guess what year? 2015. So she left her job and started her cabinet business in that year as well. So she was navigating all of that. No kids yet. Luckily, that would have been another thing.
That would have been
But
tough.
I do remember, and the reason that sticks out the most than the other side of the work, just because I was like, oh yeah, it's not just work, it's life. And then you got to work on the life too. But it was a lot of long hours and it was learning the ropes. Like I said, my mom was instrumental to help prepare some of those returns. And she was coming in from Clear Lake because that's where she lived, and to help do that. And that was excellent. Couldn't have done it without her. But it was mostly just staying and making. Basically all I had to go on was my dad's previous work. So you look at the return from before and go, okay, here's how he did it. And then here's the new situation. How am I going to do it? And so each return would take me way longer than it does now to get done, because I'm double checking everything just to be sure, because I didn't know what I was doing in a lot of cases, looking up a lot of stuff, using all the tools available to you that you possibly can, which in 2015, there weren't nearly as many tools as there are now. But there were still some. So yeah, and then using the processes he put in place already. My stepmom, that was another big challenge. My stepmom and mom in the same building. But my stepmom, who is still with me, she's our office manager, and she was there. She knew the processes because she'd been working with it for the past several years with my dad. And so keeping that side together was also probably the most important thing, because she already knew what she was doing. So it was just really learning that tax side. But yeah, that was the difficult part, in just conforming my work to the tax process that my dad already had. And then, I didn't try to change too much in that year, but then in future years, like learning what I need to adjust to make it mine and what works for me. But yeah, he was using some old antiquated tax software that was terrible. I got rid of that one. I can't remember when, but I only used it for a year or two, and that was it. But yeah, it was just going through and putting in that work and figuring out, navigating that and the personal life and everything else during those first 2 months. And I just remember getting done with it and getting through it, and just, I was in such a daze. You're in such a fog when that sort of thing happens. I don't even know what was going on. So, but yeah, it takes some time to recoup even after tax season, because you feel like you went to war. So that's what it felt like, for sure. But it was just referencing all the tools and my dad's stuff. It was like he was there with me, from his tax returns So being able to look at that.
So a little tip, everybody document everything, because if somebody has to take over from
Yes.
you, like
Yeah.
having the
Yeah.
documentation makes a big difference. That's the nerdiest like a piece of advice you're going to learn
Yeah.
on this podcast today.
Yeah. And I will say what's funny, he was not the best at documenting like all the like his notes and stuff may have made sense to him, but they didn't make sense to me. So sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. So I was like, what is he talking about here? And had to like kind of cross-reference. It was a lot to try to figure that out. So but luckily that was just 1 year, and then I kind of got my stride in the next year, So
Well, future note for Zane, make better notes that people know what you're talking
yeah,
about.
there you
'Cause
go.
half the time I don't know what I'm talking about. So,
Right.
that's important.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of changes happened since you took it over. It was 2014. You've just got through the 2025 tax season.
Yeah.
Tell me about what you haven't changed. What sort of part of your, the business your dad started, that part of the legacy, what have you maintained as sort of core of the business that a business would be going 42 years now? Is that
Yeah. 1983. Yeah, you got it. 42 years. So yeah. One, I mean, I still use his old folders for the vast majority of our clients still come into the door. They walk into the building and have us prepare their returns with their hard copies of their W-2s and 1099s and all of that stuff. And still a giant number of those. During tax time, we are in the building, have 700-ish returns at one given time to repair or prepare once it gets to the near the end of tax season. Now that's online and in person. But basically, yeah, his systems to be able to streamline that. There's a folder system that we use that I still use to this day. Nothing fancy, but it's something that works.
Mhm.
And it's these processes. And then my stepmom has her whole thing that she goes through up front with the way we contact clients and how a folder is prepared and all of that sort of a thing. It's still the same start to finish. That experience we want to be the same. I think, I didn't even really get to powwow with him about like, what his tenets of his business are and all of this. I just kind of gleaned whatever I could from it. And I think one of his things was making it easy on people. People would always say or said that to me afterwards. They say how nice of a guy he was and how easy it was to do business with him. And so that is the number one thing that I carry forward that's like a tenet that I think he had as well, was just that it's if somebody wants to come in and drop off their information, just drop it off and go, and they don't want to spend any time on it, fine, we'll do that. If someone wants to come in and meet with us for a half an hour, we'll do that. We do 30-minute consultations. We do not do any longer than 30 minutes. I make no exceptions to that. And he would do some things, some like super quick ones, but that's, he would get into his thing and his rhythm, and some of mine are 15. People just literally drop off and I check over their stuff and we go from there and I prepare it off line. So, those sorts of things I think are things that we carried forward, but making it easy. And the other thing is keeping the price reasonable. It's a big thing to me that everybody can kind of afford it. Our tax prep starts at about $200. It's a pretty affordable thing, especially TurboTax. I know is even creeping up to that place. So, but yeah, I want to keep it that way. We don't nickel and dime people. We answer letters for clients without charging most of the time, unless it's a very audit process or something like that, of course. But we give 30 minutes of free tax consultation time outside of tax season to clients. So those sorts of things I think are really important for people to be like, okay, this is like somebody that's a partner with me that can help me with this stuff, that's not going to nickel and dime me and just have an overall good experience. So I think all of those things, like I said, it's hard to tell, but just knowing the types of clients and the last 10 years of what we've been doing, I think that's what I would say is the same.
What I take away from that is, nobody told you what a great tax provider Lee was, right? They told you about what a good person he was and how he made life easy for everybody else. And
yes, that's true.
That's a good reminder for people that, as an accountant, as somebody in the service industry, somebody in life, people remember the value that you add to their lives, not the service that you provide. The service is just, it's just, that's what the dollars change hands for, right? We give the tax service, you pay us the dollars, but they keep coming back because it was easy, because, you guys have created a system that makes it easy for them, makes them feel comfortable and don't feel like they're being taken advantage of. And I think it's a great lesson for everybody. And that's sort of what put you up there is, the person that people come to the street to me and say, hey, Justin's such a great guy, and you should talk to him. And that's obviously seems to be the legacy of Stevens Tax Services, is good people, affordable price, adding value to people's life. And I think that's what all we should aim for, right? Like that's a great way to be remembered.
Yeah, I think so. And it's all those things are very important to me as well. And I think, probably because they were instilled in me, those sorts of things. So, yeah.
So talk to me about the future. Where is Stevens Tax Services going? Are you creating a tax provider to take over from you in 20 years' time? Or what's the future of Stevens Tax Services?
Yeah, an empire, right? That's what I want to go for. So it's, as I said, I'll have 3 full-time tax preparers, possibly even another full-time or part-time tax preparer, and then extra office support during tax time. So this is going to be an interesting tax season because it is the most staff that we've had before. And we're going to see kind of how that goes. Part of the big thing for me was getting to this point. I had the other EA that worked in my office for 5 years, since 2020. And I grew a lot with him. We and trained him from the ground up. He became an EA, didn't have any experience, and I trained him from start to finish. So it's that's kind of what I've done with the 2 new people as well, and Clara and Sergio, and they're both fantastic. And I think that with them, and then with the others that I bring on, we're going to kind of take a barometer of how this tax season goes and see if it's something that we need to keep expanding on with more tax season help or more full-time help or what. But I think that my eventual goal is that, to keep going, to keep offering this service and see if we can take it and scale it even a little bit larger but the important part is sticking with what makes it special, which is that more personal feeling than you're going to get at an H&R Block or, obviously than TurboTax, because you don't have a person in front of you, but keeping it as easy. And the secret sauce, I think, for a long time has been myself and being able to, and it was my dad before. It's when you go to a tax office, a lot of times you go to a tax person, not just a place. And so finding out if we can take that person and make it the place. And in that way, I can help more people and I can get more people taken care of and provide more personal experience to people with other people helping me, as long as I can keep the secret sauce, the same thing. So that's going to be really important to get through these growing pains and see if they are pains. And then, look at hiring additional people and going from there. I'd love if it's going to be more remote work, second location. Like I said, a lot of people still like coming in the building, even though it is kind of everybody's saying it's going by the wayside, and we have a full client portal and we're fully equipped remotely and all of that stuff, but people still love coming in. So, yeah.
I mean, there'll always be a space in the market for that place where people can walk in the door.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not your customer. I don't want to go into any space in the world. But I'm a percentage of people. There's always those people that want to walk in, especially with something as personal as tax services. People want to know who they're dealing with, right? Like you're sharing a lot of important information for them. And it does, and it is better than just the green block or the red tick sign or whatever, those signs are. People want a little bit more of that.
Yeah.
But you spoke about the secret sauce and like the values that you're trying to instill. Like, how do you go about that? I mean, you're one person and there's a bunch of people around you and you're stretched during tax season. Like what is your like methodology of like sharing that message with people, training the new people coming in? Like, this is who we are. This is how we serve our clients. How do you go about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's still, I'm working it out because it's figuring out. We had myself and the other EA and we had a rhythm with it.
Mm-hmm.
And we both had very similar, feelings about things. Like if there were special concessions that needed to be made because of extenuating circumstances, we would do that. It's always about the people first. And that's what I try to instill into the people that work here, is just that it's the people first. We need to remember that on the other side of this 1040, there's a household, there's a family, there's a business owner who's just starting out, there's whatever it is. And one reason why it's important to keep the price down for me is that, the humanity in it, and just remember that it is a human being. And I think that that's where we start. And I'm always going to err on the side of the client. If it's a situation where something went amiss for some reason, I'm always going to err on the side of the client and make sure that they're well taken care of. And we go above and try to do our best to go above and beyond to get that either the issue resolved or whatever their pain is that needs to be taken care of. And in my experience in the past with from what I've heard from other clients, is that's not always the case. And it's also to be responsive to emails, to how the client wants to communicate. If they communicate through our portal system, whatever it is. So communication and humanity. I mean, that's number one. Again, coming from a sales background, I kind of learned that stuff, to just treat the customer is always right sort of a thing. But going deeper than that, it's about more seeing that the client is a person, and not just numbers.
Listening to what they're actually saying, right? I think,
Yes.
we'd sometimes just ask questions to tick boxes, but when you actually pay attention, listen, and hear what they value, and then you action what they value, I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah, that's great way to put it, for sure.
Have you had any bad clients where you've actually had to fire them?
Well, that's a good question. I have a colleague who's a bookkeeper who would say that I don't fire nearly enough people. But there's always the ones that are more difficult and more trying and take up more time than the others, and that's going to happen. I have not. I have trouble saying no. And I have trouble saying that I can't help you. The situations where I do say that is if it's a return that I think they'd be in the better hands of a CPA or something like that. I have turned away a couple of those, even one who begged me to do it because they liked me and liked working with me. But I was like, I just think you're going to be in better hands with somebody who can take more time and go through this. I'm not 100% familiar with the situation. It's just not my thing, and go from there. And then if there is that situation with clients, it's, I don't know where I would have to get to, to actually do that. They would just have to be straight up, rude to the staff, or, just not a very nice person, but everybody has their days. Yeah. So no, to answer your question, I don't really fire people. But I'm not averse to it. It's just, well, I guess I am averse to it, but I'm not completely opposed to it. It just hasn't happened.
Well, I mean, it's clearly creating a good environment where people feel comfortable around you. Kindness leads to kindness sometimes, and if you're creating a good environment for them, and maybe it's just keeping the assholes away, which is
It could be.
just could be
Yeah,
good, right?
could be.
I do like the point that you made though about not over promising, under delivering, in terms of telling people, hey, you've sort of outgrown me. I mean, those are tough conversations as well, because I know normally when that happens, there's normally a pretty decent dollar sign behind it,
Yes.
right? Because so you're giving up a lot of revenue.
hmm
How do you keep yourself aligned with that? Because it can be difficult, right? I know I've pushed the boundary sometimes a little too far. I've had clients, I've had the conversation, hey, I think you've outgrown us, but we'll keep going. Sure, whatever you say.
Yeah.
And it ends up leaving not on the greatest terms.
Yeah.
The 3 times that I know have happened, 2 of them still in great terms. 1, we probably will never talk to each other again, right?
Yeah.
It can really turn pretty poor if you do sort of stick to it when you shouldn't. How do you keep yourself that aligned and making sure that have those conversations at the right time?
Yeah, I have been better at it lately. I have in these 10 years, I have bitten off more than I can chew a number of times, and it's just happened, and I regret it every single time. And I kind of think about those situations to where I go when I'm in the middle of tax season and it's March 18th, and I've been spending who knows how much time on a return that I would only charge $500 or $600 for, maybe, and the CPA might charge 10 grand for, And so it's but I'm spending a lot of time because it's stuff I'm not familiar with, and I have to learn it, and I have to research it, and I have to do the work that a CPA would typically do for a client like that. 99% of the time, even if an S corp or a trust or whatever it is that are the more complicated returns that we do, they're still not very complicated. It's pretty straightforward, at least because we do so many of them. But every now and then you run into something. And in this particular instance, yeah, it was a S corp and then a grantor trust and a number of different things it would have been a big dollar, to your point. But I just keep in mind those situations, like you were saying, you got burned by those time return. It never works out for the client. And what I keep in mind is the client. So is this going to be the best thing for them? Am I going to be the best thing for them? And the answer, if I can't answer that with an emphatic yes, which I can do, like I said, 99% of the time I can say, I am the best person. I know that I can do this better than these people over here. But if it's not the case that it's not going to work, and I know that, then that's the area that I go on. Just think of the client first. Best for them? No. Okay. Then let's get them somebody who is. And I've made connections through Provisors, through BNI, through networking that are just, that can handle those fantastically. So
That's great. It's a constant message that you put through since our conversation today, people first. And, that's a strong value that you clearly make decisions with and lead with. And, that's shining through today as we started the conversation, clearly a value that, your dad put in the business as well. And it seems to make life a lot easier when you make decisions with your values.
right. Yes. That's a big thing in mental health journeys and things like that through therapy and things I've learned to align with my values. And that is a really, really important part of my mental state these days, is to really try to get and figure out what the values are and just keep with those. And anytime I don't, it goes awry. So
Let's touch on technology a little bit. We all know that the world is changing very rapidly.
yeah.
There's a lot of AI happening. There's a lot of, especially in the tax space, there's a lot going on. Like every
Yes.
time I open up an email, there's, new tax technology, and this is going to change this. And how do you, as a smaller firm with a few people and, really reliant on yourself most of the time, sort of keep up to date with technology changes, and how are you bringing technology into your business?
Yeah. It's really about adapting to the needs of what we have and what I see the clients need. So we adopted a client portal back in 2019. So I started to use when there weren't that many portals out around that time, not as many as there are now, or solutions. And it's a CRM tool, client portal, a whole bunch of other things. And I was on the hunt for it because I was like, there's got to be a good way to track people. My dad would just, we have the folders in the office, and that's the way you track people. People weren't submitting information via email against our better wishes. People still do. Just send us an email with all their information, or a portal or anything like that. And what a time to institute it, 2019, when the very next year the world shuts down. We were already ready to go with the portal. And we've kind of outgrown that now, that portal. So we're implementing a new system called TaxDome. That's a new software, a very popular software out there. There's a number of them out there that utilize AI and utilize, just the different aspects of tracking, a CRM system specifically built for tax professionals and all of that. I auditioned a whole bunch of them, and I fell on this as the best thing for our service. But it's thinking about the client first. And I noticed some people were struggling with that old portal that we had. And we were fine with the office in here, and it was fine to track things, and it was perfectly okay. But we spent a lot of time with people, teaching them how to use the portal, going through that, and e-signatures were difficult and all of this. And if there's ever a time when I think this is too hard, then there must be a better solution. And so
Sure.
that's where I started looking. And that's really what you need to ask yourself. Is this too hard? There's got to be a better solution. And technology usually fills that. Like, it usually fills that void. There's so many solutions out there right now that you can lean on as an extra tool and figure out the best one. But it takes time and it takes work. It's a lot of work migrating to a new portal. And I'm finding that out now. I'm in the middle. We just moved offices, also physical spaces. So there's a lot of changes this year. But yeah, staying on top of it is just figuring out where the pain points are for the client and for us, and then just searching for those tools that make our life easier. Finding an online appointment system that integrates with all of that. And then so clients can go on, make their own appointments, make it easy for people to pay you. I mean, all of those things are technological things that seem to be straightforward and easy, but a lot of people don't implement them. So I'm always looking for that next thing. I've always been pretty tech savvy.
Yeah, you say tech savvy, but again, it's decisions made by making people's lives easier, and that
Right.
value of looking after people just keeps coming through. And if I'm going to walk away from this conversation, like, that's the big thing. Like, I want to be better, be more successful. I just got to think about what's good for the people, and then make sure that. And when I say people, and you've said this as well, it's not just your clients, it's yourself, it's people around you, it's your family, the people, right? Like, what's good for the people, that sort of should drive some decisions. It seems to make things a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's right. Client first, employee a close second, and then kind of go from there. It's usually what's good for the client, though, is good for the employee, and vice versa. It goes hand in hand. But yeah, all of that. And then, yeah, take care of yourself. I mean, this tax season was the first one that I kept a a workout regimen. And was working out, I limited it to 20 minutes, but I was doing 20 minutes a few days a week. And at 10 o'clock at night, I squoze it in whenever I could. But taking care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else if you don't take care of yourself.
Yeah, and you mentioned it briefly about losing 70 pounds, and yeah, I'd love to touch on that story a little bit. I mean, I've heard it all, and we've shared our own stories around it, and a
Yeah.
lot of it comes from the same place. Like if we want to help people, we got to be around, we got to be available for them,
Yeah.
right? And so we've got to make changes in our lives to make sure that we're there, that we can serve people in the best possible way. But maybe we can just quickly touch on your journey of losing 70
Yeah.
pounds.
Yeah, it all started with arthritis in my shoulder. As I've told you, I found out I had arthritis. I could barely lift my kids up. I've got a 6 and a 9-year-old now. And it was really difficult. It was becoming really difficult and affecting my life. I slept on my left side because that's the side my wife is on, so I'd often roll over to her. And I couldn't do that anymore. I had to sleep on the other side. And it was something that was like super an annoyance more than anything else, but it affected my daily life. And so that's where it kind of started. And I just realized, okay, yeah, if I'm going to stick around and be healthy and be able to get on the soccer field with my kids and play with them and keep up with them at 44 and then at 50 and at, longer in life, then I gotta do something to change here. I was 310 pounds, which I'm 6'5", so it was spread out, but that's heavy. It's very heavy. And now I'm 243 as of today. And that was about a year and a half ago. The shoulder's a lot better. The doctor at first gave me a cortisone shot and just kind of sent me on my way. And I decided to, he said I'd be back in about a year because the cortisone wears off. I never went back. I've just strengthened that. Yeah, I found a lot of personal gratitude, and it's made, and a lot of just like I said, grateful for myself that I'm able to do that. And tax season was tough because it was, getting to work at 6 or 7 in the morning, leaving at 6 or 7 at night, and then getting home, putting the kids to bed, then working out for 20 minutes, getting back into bed, opening the laptop and working some more until midnight, So, but it was quite a challenge, but I knew that I had to do it in order to maintain the type of life that I wanted. So taking care of yourself is vital, crucially important. And I don't plan on steering away from that anytime soon.
Yeah, and the little part in that is, during tax season, you had time for work, you had time for your family, and you had time for workout. Possible, right? Accountants work 24/7. How do
Yeah.
you do it?
I, well, like I said, it was more than 24. It seemed like more than 24 hours. It was
Yeah.
very little sleep, a lot of coffee, and it's a short period of time, and then we have a little more time as tax season goes away, and that drives me a lot of time. So it's just for a couple of months. Let's just get through it. But yeah, it was pretty insane. I'm hoping that this tax season, having added help and all of that I can scale that back, still maintain my workouts, because I don't have to be here until from 6 to 7 and work 12, 13-hour days and 7 days a week. We're open Monday through Saturday, and I was off Super Bowl Sunday, and then I didn't take a day off until April 15th. And that was just what it took to get it done. But I'm hoping that I can scale that back so I don't burn myself out as much.
Yeah, and it's always just finding what the balance look like, what works for you, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes, like you said, it's a short period of time, and the rest of the year it's a lot
Yeah.
easier. You have time, time for the things for your family to do the things that are important to you.
Yeah.
It all balances out over the long run, and clearly it's helping you live the life that you want, which is the most important part.
Yep. And it is all about that quote, being on the other side of the work. And that's all it takes, is just the other side of the work through it.
Justin, if you were talking to somebody coming out of college that's thinking of going into the accounting world, what would you say to them?
I would say that it is a great place to think about where they want to be in the accounting world. There's so much that we talk about when we talk about accounting, right? So many different levels, and everybody's instantly like, I want to be a CPA. I want to do this. I want to do that. And so many people get into CPA firms and those sorts of things. And the problem is that we're missing these tax preparers that do your average person's return for a reasonable cost. There's a huge market for what we do specifically, and what those other big firms or those other big companies out there that do. And the CPAs and stuff like that they're great, but there's a whole bunch of CPAs firms out there that do that. And I would really just say, think about what you want to do and where the business you want to be is. If you want to do taxes, there is a huge market for it, and people need us. You need the CPAs that do the basic returns, or the EAs. Look at what you really want to do. You don't have to be if you don't want to be a controller at some, big company or whatever, there's a lot of opportunities in the field at the, I don't want to say lower end, but at the lower end. And I kind of view it as the sky's the limit. And I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. With AI and with all of that, I've been stressing like, oh no, is it going to start phasing out? And more and more people are turning to services like TurboTax or whatever it is. And yes, they are. But at the same time, people are afraid of that. They don't want a computer to do their stuff a lot of times. So computer can help, but they need somebody to review it. So yeah, I would just say really look at the avenue that you want to go into. There's a ton of stuff on the upper end, but think about if you want to do taxes, start working on that and go from there, because people need help.
And that's it right there, right? People need help.
Yeah.
Lead by trying to serve people, and
yeah,
things can just turn out pretty successfully.
Right.
Justin, I've loved hearing about your story, love about the legacy of your business, 43 years going strong and, planning for the future, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming to Protea Conversations today. And we love to end with some rapid fire questions. So I have 5 questions for you if you're ready.
Okay, go.
What's your dream vacation?
I would like to go to, oh geez, we go on a lot of vacations, but a European vacation. We've never been to Europe yet. My wife and I, we travel a lot. And so I would love to go to Europe. My wife is a interior designer. So she would love to go to France and see the design elements and all of that stuff. And I know that would make her life. So I would love to do that. And I love Europe, and English comedy and stuff like that is my cup of tea.
Fantastic. Do you prefer audiobooks or paper books?
Audiobooks these days, because you can squeeze them in anywhere, but I'm an English major, so I love reading. But yes, I am a huge fan of lit RPG. It's a different sort of category because I'm a Dungeons and Dragons player and, all of that. So, but I listen to a lot of that.
You should have this one tied up pretty easily. If you only have 20 minutes to exercise, what exercise would you be doing?
I would be probably bench pressing. Just lifting weights. I love doing push-ups. I'm trying to master the one-arm push-up. I've been doing diamond push-ups a lot lately to try to get to that place. But yeah, that's, to me, that's the most fun because it doesn't take as much energy as running. So I used to run, and I commend those that run.
Pushing 240 pounds on one arm, that sounds like a lot to me.
It's hard. I would get, knee splints or shin splints and all that stuff for sure.
What's one quality that you appreciate in a good friend?
The willingness to be there. I think that the best friends that I've had are the people that are there for you no matter what. And that's all you can really ask for.
Last question. You're on death row. What would your final meal be?
I am a prime rib guy. We went to this super fancy steakhouse, and they had prime rib on the menu, and I was like, I need to order that, but that's not the fanciest of steaks. Like you can get these, they had these Wagyu things and stuff like that. And I didn't get the prime rib, and I regretted it. so I still think about it. I'd rather have the $50 prime rib than the $100, really, really fancy steaks, or $150 sometimes. So yeah.
Awesome. Justin, I really appreciate the time. Thank you for being on Protea Conversations.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
And with that, we ended another Protea Conversations. Thank you for joining us in this journey of learning and inspiration. Today, we've gained insight from our guest and taken another step towards understanding the diverse tapestry of leadership in business and accounting. Remember, each conversation is a step towards the positive transformation of business leaders. We hope our discussion has given you valuable takeaways to apply in your own career and life. Don't forget to subscribe to Protea Conversations on YouTube and Spotify so you never miss an episode. We'd also love to hear your thoughts and experiences, so connect with me on social media channels. I'm most active on LinkedIn and would love you to join the conversation. Join us next time for more engaging stories, advice, and conversations that matter. Until then, keep striving for excellence, embracing growth. Thank you for listening, be kind, and goodbye from Protea Conversations.